I'm an administrator at a major hospital in the New York City area. I'm not supposed to talk about this, but it's so disconcerting that I believe more people need to know about it. There's been an unexpected and inexplicable rise in the stockpile of blood. It's not only at our hospital, but in hospitals and blood banks all over the world. No one knows where it's coming from, and no one can seem to explain how it gets here. All the routine tests say it's perfectly good and free from any pathogens or impurities. But the fact remains that no one knows what's going on. Now, you have to realize, hospitals and blood banks everywhere have always been low on blood. It's why there are blood drives and calls for donations and all of that. The last few weeks, though, there's been so much that our hospital needed to dispose of some because it expired before we had the chance to use it. As weird as this sounds, it gets worse. This is the part that I'm worried will come back and bite me in the ass if any of the other administrators discover who I am. I signed an NDA explicitly stating I wouldn't talk about this. Still, I can't keep this quiet. When we dispose of blood, we do it in the incinerator with all the other medical waste. The fire burns so hot, pretty much everything evaporates, and all that's left is the inert ash. But this blood didn't evaporate. It did something way different. A hospital maintenance worker was on the roof, doing some unrelated work when smoke from the incinerator began exiting through the chimney. It looked normal for a while. Then the smoke tapered off, and flies started pouring out. He told us they flew straight up for nearly 2 full minutes and hung above the roof like a cloud. After another minute, they fell like rain and burst open, covering the roof and the maintenance worker with the same blood we'd tried to incinerate. We tried to incinerate more blood, this time with hospital administrators waiting on the roof. Same result. Our administrators have spoken with the heads of other hospitals around the country, and they've experienced similar issues. The blood banks are bursting with overstock, and people everywhere are being given this blood that just appeared out of nowhere. The last thing I'm going to mention is the patient we readmitted last night. He'd been discharged a month ago, following an operation which required multiple transfusions. Those transfusions were done with the mystery blood before anyone noticed its existence. His readmission was due to a fire at his home. He came into the ER with 60% of his body covered in third-degree burns. While he was being worked on, flies erupted from underneath the burnt flesh and dropped to the floor, exploding into thick droplets of blood. The patient died soon after. The doctors and nurses were frightened and confused, but they don't know the whole story. But I guess they will soon. Please help me tell more people what's going on. The blood just doesn't stop coming. My boss has been bothering me for a week to get rid of all the flies that keep buzzing around our incinerator. I don't know where the hell they all came from so suddenly, but they're a major pain in the ass. You'd think I'd be used to it, considering we deal with municipal waste all day, but honestly, this is the first time we've ever encountered more than a handful of flies, and believe me, this is way more than a handful. I've been trying to figure out where they're all coming from. I've been in and around all the machinery here, and it's pretty damn clean for a dump. You know, nothing I'd want to fucking eat off of, obviously. It's still not bad. There's nothing nearly dirty enough to account for the number of flies buzzing around this place once we start a burn. Excuse my mouth, but these things are fucking disgusting. They're like those big fat flies you see at the beach. And when you swat them, they spatter blood all over the place. Literally every time you kill one. It's like they're vampires or something. Just filled with blood. They must be biting all the workmen and rats around this place. Oh, so gross. There's one thing that might be causing the infestation, but I think if it were the case, my boss wouldn't be bothering me about it. I've known for a while he's been making some cash on the side by accepting industrial and medical waste from places that can't afford a permit to properly dispose of the stuff. He greases my palm with a couple hundred every so often, so I keep my mouth shut. And hell, I need the money. So I've kept shut up about it this whole time. Still, I can't help but think there's a connection. God knows what those medical places throw away, and if anything's gonna attract flies, it's that. So I was just gonna post this with just the stuff I wrote above. But I just did our last burn of the day, and I'm a little freaked out. The last burns of the day are when we put in the extra stuff that we're not supposed to be handling. There was some waste from a clinic, some kind of medical facility. I could tell that much. But there were also some things from the old chemical plant that was being recovered or renovated. I don't know, fucking something. We heard rumors that the owners of the plant left terrible things in there when they went out of business. But before anyone got a chance to learn what it was, someone bought up the property and started doing renovations. They must have paid off whatever inspectors come around there, because the material they've been sending us to burn has been nasty. Ugh. Christ, especially tonight. Anyway, it'll probably cost me my job if my boss knows how to use the internet well enough to read this. But what I just saw worries the heck out of me. I loaded the biological and chemical waste into the incinerator, and a few things happened. First, the fire burned so intensely that I worried the chimney would crack. Second, once the majority of the fire died down, and main flames from the incinerator were the only heat source, black smoke turned bright orange for about 30 seconds. And as soon as the smoke changed, every single fly in the place flew out of the room and up into the orange smoke. As it billowed out and the flies mixed with it, their bodies must have burst, because I saw drops of blood raining down on the garbage and landfills below. The smoke turned black again, tapered off. But on the ground where the blood from all the flies rained, thick, heavy mushrooms sprouted almost immediately. There's a swath as far as I can see covered in things. Now every seagull around the place is going nuts, eating them. I think I see the rats running toward them too. Now, while all this stuff is fucking weird, just a minute ago, I started getting scared. One of the seagulls must have had its fill of the mushrooms and flew in my general direction. While I watched, excuse my language again, shit on the ground. The moment it hit the dirt, more mushrooms sprouted. Thin, stringy. Ants already swarming around it, taking pieces away. I don't know what's happening here, and it seems impossible that these things can just grow so fast. They are literally thousands of birds, countless bugs eating these mushrooms that just appeared out of blood and toxic smoke. I ain't no scientist, but that can't be good, right? I'm into dead stuff. Birds, squirrels, rabbits, the occasional deer. I don't know why. They just all do it for me. Oh, and just so all my cards are on the table with you folks, when I say do it for me, I mean sexually, yeah. I'm not gonna psychoanalyze myself and try to give some sort of elaborate reason. Something tells me that when you read this, you'll do all that for me. No. As far as I'm concerned, my attractions are victimless. Unconventional. Yes. But victimless. I won't be ashamed for being myself. There's a reason why I'm writing this, of course. It's not to brag. I'm fairly certain that'd be an exercise in futility, no. I'm writing because there's something going on that I find particularly unsettling. That's right. Even I find something unsettling. So if that raises some alarms in your head, probably for a good reason. I guess I just need to take you through my process. I know. Just the kind of thing you'd want to read, right? Oh, hey, don't worry. I'm not going to get into the sticky and salty bits. Well, maybe some of the sticky ones. That's just unavoidable. But, let's say I'm driving on Florida's Turnpike. I'm about 50 miles south of Kissimmee near Yeehaw Junction. Only about an hour from Disney. Woo! I'll be getting off at the exit, and I'll see a dead deer on the side of the road. One that's not all pulped up by an 18-wheeler. Tried those before. Won't again. Mental note. Anyway, I'll see the deer. I'll pull over, and I'll haul the guy or gal into the pickup. People drive by and see me doing it. Police officers and priests and school buses included. They don't care. Like I said, victim. With the deer in the truck, I'll head on home. I've got a small place near the swamp. It's not too swampy. There's no alligators on the porch or kudzu in the kitchen. It's just your typical rural Florida swampy. Basic swampy. There's no neighbors for half a mile in all directions. Unless you count armadillos. Armadillos, by the way, do not have a place in my bedroom. Only in my heart. They're beautiful animals. Regal. In their own special way. I apologize for my digression, but I just thought I had to mention that. So I'll haul the deer carcass out of the truck onto a picnic table I've got over by the shed. Being in Florida, the likelihood of the animal being ripe is rather high. While I'm not a fan of the smell, the ripening process brings what I call an added bonus to my new friend. When a dead animal's been sitting out in the Florida sun, lots and lots of flies come and lay their eggs. And those eggs hatch. And what comes out is very wriggly. I'll leave the rest to your imagination. But now we're all caught up where we need to be. Yeah. So, yesterday afternoon, I had a 4-point buck on the picnic table. I don't know if it had gotten hit by a smart car or a mini or whatever, but it was in pretty good shape, aside from half its head lying on the road next to the main body. I didn't take that part. Like I said, I'll spare you the details. After we did what couples do, I poked around for any other nooks or crannies that might have fly babies hidden away inside. To my utter delight, there were quite a few. Little pockets of what looked like squirmy rice. I made a mental note of all the pockets of delight and started doing some chores around the house. A couple hours later, when I came back to my date, I was so surprised by what I found. All the pockets had grown huge. It looked like a few bowling balls had made craters in the poor guy. And those craters were full, and I mean full, of little flyworms. I know I said I enjoy the things because of their added bonus. However, At the rate they were going, I wouldn't have any deer left. Those guys usually last me a couple weeks before they get too gelatinous to provide the proper friction. Oh, TMI? Oh. I've got to tell you, I've never seen anything like that before. It was like the buck had bowls inside of it, and each bowl was filled to the brim with flyworms. It wasn't a total loss, thankfully. There was still a good portion of lovable buck, but I needed to stop the spread. I went into the shed. I got my blowtorch. I figured I could cauterize the biggest of the craters to stop them from getting too big too fast. I felt bad having to torch the little guys, but I was in no mood to go out and look for another date so quick. Plus, I didn't want to get dressed again. It was too hot, and I like walking around the house in the buff. It's very freeing. So I just said heck it and clicked on the torch and started frying everything inside those craters. And the little worms roasted down to nothing. And then, friends, the unsettling thing started to happen. As soon as the fire hit the exposed meat of the buck, thousands of full-grown flies started to pour out, right out of the meat. As if as soon as its blood started to boil, it turned to flies. And I was so grossed out. Seriously, it was remarkably unpleasant. I don't like flies at all. I like their babies. The grown-ups are too wild and annoying. It's kind of like how people like kittens, but not cats. You know, that... But, I kept torching until the areas I wanted got cauterized. But I swear on my name, at least 1 million flies had come out of the buck. Once I was done, I snuffed the torch and heard something awful. It was loud, constant buzzing coming from above me. I looked up, and all the flies that had just come out were just hovering over me, about 10 feet up. It scared me a little. I'm a big guy, and not much intimidates me, but for some reason, that cloud of flies just felt very wrong to me. Ready to hear the stupid thing I did? I was still holding the torch while I stared at the flies. It was off, but the end was still super hot from when I used it. Well, I was paying more attention to what was going on above me that I really didn't think about what I was doing with the torch. I turned around and, well, the tip of my hot dog slapped against the hot end of the torch. Readers, I bet you heard me holler from your houses, no matter where it is you all live. I dropped the torch and grabbed myself, but even in my pain, I felt something pushing against my unit and my hands. I took one hand off, and about 50 flies poured out of the spot I burned. I was scared out of my wits. And then I remembered I hadn't washed any of the buck after me after our date. There had to be something wrong with its blood. I ran in the house and I put some ice on my burn. From the kitchen window, I watched all the flies still hovering above the buck. The ones that had come out of me were now buzzing around my ceiling. And then, out of nowhere, they all popped. That's the only word I can use. They popped and covered the buck and me and my kitchen floor with what looked and felt like blood, but I don't know how the hell it could have been. Shoot. I don't know how any of this could have been. Now, Now, I was still more concerned about my burn than the mess on my date and my kitchen floor, so I tended to that for the rest of the evening. I covered up my burn, I took a shower, which is remarkably hard to do when you're trying not to get your genitalia all wet, and went to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night because my burn was bothering me. I headed into the kitchen to get another ice pack, and when I turned on the light, I was surprised to see the floor where the blood had landed was covered in mushrooms. Weird, thin ones that were whitish gray. I flipped the outside lights, and lo and behold, the dirt and picnic table and shed were covered with the same things. My date, too. I knew at that point he was a lost cause. Poor guy. My burn kept flaring and I had to take a leak, so I headed into the bathroom. The damn light bulb had blown out the week before and I kept forgetting to pick up a new one. I pulled my shorts down around my ankles, peeled off my bandage, and sat down. I was too tired to stand and didn't want to risk missing the bowl in the dark. I started to relieve myself, except nothing came out. And it hurt. It hurt a whole heck of a lot. I strained a little, but not too hard. I didn't want to blow anything out. I started to get worried about my prostate. I got up, waddled out of the bathroom, back into the kitchen. The light was on. And hollered again. There was a cluster of those same stringy mushrooms sprouting from the burned tip of my penis. When I tried to pull them out, I felt something tugging way deep inside of my groin. It hurt a lot, and I didn't want to mess up my downstairs any more than it already was. So, that's why I'm writing you guys. Sorry for the long story, but I just thought you needed to hear the details so you could give an informed opinion. And any idea what I should do? I've got to pee real bad, and those mushrooms keep getting longer and longer and longer.